Hey y'all, welcome back to Bea Finds Joy, where we are unapologetically living a joyous life boldly. And today we are going to be focusing on figuring out what is my budget type. We can't do anything with creating a budget until we know what type of budget we want to do. There's many different budgets out there, and today we're going to walk through the simple definitions of the top 5 budgets that most people use, as well as talk through the pros and cons of each one and who would be the best person to use this type of budget based on their own financial situation. So there's a lot that we're going to cover today. I'm really excited to do this video because this really gets us in line with organizing ourselves to get ready to create the budget. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, this video is a part of a larger series called the Bold Budget series, where we are going to be working through the steps to create a bold budget. A bold budget is a budget that is one that you believe in, one that is objective, one that you can leverage to do the things that you want to do that brings you joy, and one that you can depend on. Those are the key components to creating a budget that's going to work for you and allow you to live that bold life unapologetically. If this is your first video that you are watching in this series, I have a playlist of all the videos that go along with this series that you can watch. This is actually video number 2, so you can go back and watch video number 1. This first week in the series is all around getting organized. So the last video was all around understanding and thinking about your budget and resetting your budget. There is a reset method that I go through. I walk you through the steps of how to reset and to rethink where you are within your budget. We also talked in the last video around creating your bold budget why, the reason why you want to create a budget, because that really helps to focus and align you to get you ready to go to create the budget, as well as just talking through some of the key components of what this series has to do and all of the fun things that are a part of the series. Before we go into talking about what your budget type is, I also want to let you know that there is a workbook that coincides with this budget series. You can download this free workbook. The description of how to do it and the instructions of how to download it is going to be in the description box, so definitely feel free to use that. I've really thought through what's going to help you to learn and to use the information that I'm sharing to help you in the end. It's about 40 pages of just fun activities, tips, and tricks that I've created that go along with the videos. So all of the housekeeping things are out of the way. You know we got to start it off with some fun. So this series about to be lit. This series about to be hype. This series about to be fire. And not only is the series going to be that, but this video is going to be that. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, so if you have your workbook with you, if you haven't done it right, if you haven't done it yet, no worries, you can download it, print it out. Printing instructions are there for you to go as well. But we are going to be working in page 7 and page 8 of the workbook. And I would recommend getting the workbook first and printing it out or using your phone to take notes, because the first page, which is page 7 of the video that we're going for today's video, is a portion where you can write down notes. So it's really going to be important to think through. I'm going to be giving a lot of information to you today, so it's really important for you to write down some of those quick things to help you remember the different types and different characteristics of these budgets that we're about to go over. So that way, if you want to go back to really think about it and reflect on what works best for your financial information, you don't necessarily have to watch my video again. You can if you want to hang out with me, but you can have your notes ready to go. So like I said, everything for you to take your notes is in this workbook. There's specific boxes for each of the budget types that we're going to be talking about that you can write down, jot down a couple different things that I say for each of the budget types. So the first budget type that we're going to be talking about, that many people hear about when they hear about budgeting, it's kind of on the traditional side of budgeting, is the, oh, wait. Before I even go any further. So for every one of these videos in the series, I give in the beginning what our objective, what our goal is. So by the end of this video, you will know X. And today, the objective and goal is that you will be able to identify the top 5 budget styles and budget types that are out there that most commonly is used, as well as picking what your budget style that you want to use in this portion of creating your budget. I will say that you might pick a style or pick a type right now, work through it, and realize, you know what, this is actually not the type that's going to work best for my financial situation where I'm at right now, and that's okay. The good thing about a budget is that it can be reworked. So one month you could try, you know, one style, another month you can try another style. I would suggest trying it at least like for 2 to 3 months if it's, and then kind of seeing how it works for you and then moving on. But what I want to say is today you're going to be thinking about, just from this conversation that we're going to have together, like, this budget type sounds like it's the one for me. And then throughout this series, you can think about that budget type as we're working to create your budget. But as you get into it and actually do it on a weekly or monthly basis, you might have to reset and accommodate for a different budget, and that is okay. All right, so we got our objective down. Let's get into the first budget type. So there's 5 types that we're going to be going over today. The first type is the 50-30-20 budget style. And I have my notes here because I don't want to mess up anything. I want to make sure I give you all of the right information that I wrote down. This, like I said, we in school today. We in class. We about to make this fun. You know, my classes, my degree is in education, and I love to make an engaging and fun class for students, or anyone that I'm teaching, whether it's students, adults, and so this is what I'm still doing with y'all as well. We're in class, we're learning some stuff, but we're gonna make it fun. So the first style is 50-30-20 budget. So this budget, and for every budget, I'm gonna give you a simple definition of what it is. It is basically a budget that breaks down your finances into 3 different categories: needs, wants, and then your goals, savings, or debt. That's it. It breaks it down into those 3 areas: your needs, your wants, and then your saving or debt payments. 50% of your budget, when you're calculating everything out, which we'll do in a whole other video, so don't worry that you don't have this information ready to go for you. But when you are looking at your finances, 50% of your budget will go to your needs, your necessities, the things that you need to live, right? So that would be your rent, your mortgage, that would be your insurance, your cell phone bills, your car insurance, groceries, any transportation, gas. All of that is under the needs. You can't live without these pieces in your budget. So that 50% of your budget, 50% of your finances will go towards your needs. 30% will go towards your wants. And this is the discretionary money, right? This is like, oh, I like to watch different movies. Let me get a Netflix account or Hulu. Or if you're a reader like myself, you have a Kindle Unlimited, or you might have a gym membership, or you want to go to a restaurant every week. This is the things that, like, you don't necessarily need, but you like them because it brings you joy. It brings you excitement. It gives you that happiness that you want. So 30% of your budget will go towards the discretionary wants portion of your finances. And then 20% will go towards your goal. So the way I budget, my mindset is, after I've figured out what my income is, after I figured out what my needs and wants are, everything else is under the plan. So plan for your savings or plan for your debt. Those are like the 2 main areas that you pretty much are going to be planning for. And so 20% of your budget will go to an emergency fund, will go to a vacation or a trip. 20% will be going to putting your minimum payments on your debt, or putting a little bit more on top of your minimum payments to your debt. Investments. Those are the things that are going to help set you up for success, whether it's savings or getting out of debt, which is a big deal. So key things for the 50-30-20 is that 50% of your finances will go towards your needs. You can't live without things. 30% will go towards your wants, the things that it's like, I have a little wiggle room that if I need more money to go towards my needs, I can maybe stop a subscription, or I can maybe not go out and eat every week. And then 20% will go towards that saving and debt goals. The pros to today's budgets, so for every different type, I'm going to give you some pros and cons and who it's going to be working best for. It's a great option for newbies. So if you are a new budgeter and just need a way to really focus and have like guidelines for your budget, this is great for you because it gives you those parameters: 50%, 30%, 20%. You can customize it. So if your budget doesn't really work well with, you might need a little bit more under the needs category. So you might actually do 60, 30, 10. You know, I'm not always great with money, with numbers. So 60% goes towards your needs, 30% goes towards your wants, and maybe 20%, 10%, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is that right? 10, yeah, 10% goes towards your savings goals. Or it might be 40, 40, 20. A budgeter that has used this method in different ways is Naturally Lizzie. She has used the 50, 30, 20 or some version of that in her budgeted method on YouTube. So if you want to find a YouTuber that actually has used this method, definitely check her out. She's amazing. We've become really close friends over the years just being on YouTube together. And she does a really great job breaking down that process for you. So check out her videos. Another thing that's really good and a pro about this is it's very hands-on. And so you have the opportunity to really get in, make the necessary changes that you need to based on those percentages. A con is that you have to really define, well, some people might think that a con would be defining what your needs and wants are. Some people don't want to do that, but it's necessary, and we're going to do that in this series, so just know it's coming down the line. But you need to sit down and really identify like what's a need versus want, and make hard decisions of like, maybe what this want thing is actually not needed, and I could be putting that money towards my savings or debt goals. So sometimes it's making hard decisions of like things that you have that you might not need, or a need might be that you have a car payment, or I don't want to say a car payment, or cable. This is a biggest one, and I can give you my own example. So we had cable for years on end. It was a need for me. I had to have my cable until the cable bill was just ridiculously expensive, and we found now we use YouTube TV, and we cut out all cable and have saved so much money. I think over like $100 just by cutting that. So it's still a need because I still want to watch my shows, but I adjusted where I kind of changed the amount or changed the service to make it work for me. So this budgeting system is best for, like I said, new budgeters. It's best for those that need help with like savings, to give you a specific, you know, that no matter what, 20% is going to go to your savings, 10% is going to go to your savings no matter what, and helps you with that. Some of the resources that I showed, and some of the resources that I used online to help me prepare for this video, I will put those links down below. Joy Wallet, Lending Tree, Tiller was another one. They recommended that college students and new professionals use this method as well, and it's best for them. Someone that it's not necessarily best for, the 50, 30, 20, is someone that's maybe struggling to make ends meet, where it's like you really have to be focused on specific areas within your budget, and there might not be a lot of wiggle room to like move things around for the 50, 30, 20. Or you might have a large savings goal. So you might want to be putting more than 20% into savings, or 30%, but that might take a little bit away from your 50%. So think through your own financial situation to determine if you think this could be a good option for you to have those guidelines ready to go, that you know 50% is going to go to the needs, 30% is going to go to the wants, and then 20% is going to go towards the savings and debt. All right, so the next budgeting type that we're going to be talking about, that has a special place in my heart because this is the one that I use and I've been using since 2016, is the zero-based budget method. Has literally changed my whole way of thinking about money and budgeting, and it's really helped me to meet my goals. So the simple definition for the zero-based budget is basically you take your income, you minus your expenses, and then it equals zero. So for example, you have an income of $3,000. All of your expenses, those needs, those wants, well, we're going to be talking about variable expenses and fixed expenses in this series. It's a whole separate video, but you're going to be taking that amount. So let's say it's $3,000. You're going to subtract your $3,000 income from the $3,000 for your fixed, variable, and goal of whether savings or debt. And the end result is going to be an equal zero. Now, this really helps you to know where every single cent is going in your budget. You are able to track and see and move money into areas that aligns with your budgeting needs and goals. So, the thing about zero-based budgeting that are some pros is that it's a simple way to manage your money, to help you to reach your financial goals, like I just said. And it helps for you to know where your money is going. Those are like the really key components of a zero-based budget. And it really helped me because something that I struggled with before, and the reason why I am resetting and refocusing my budget, is I didn't know where my money was going. I was getting charges to my account and I didn't know where they were coming from. I was overspending. I, was going over budget every month, but having a zero-based budget and pairing it with the envelope system, which we'll talk about in a second, really helps you to focus your budget and to make your money move and shake the way that you want it to go. It also helps you to look at your finances, look at your spending, and to make changes based off that. So if you have an income and your fixed and variable expenses, your needs and wants is more than your income, you are able to see how you can move that money around. So for me, when I was doing this budgeting, I would say a couple years ago, I tracked how much we were eating out. And we were spending on eating out and groceries over $1,000 for two people. We have at the time it was only my one son, but he's a very picky eater, so he wasn't eating that much. $1,000 for two people is just crazy, and we're still paying off debt. So what we did is we pared down our monthly grocery budget. So we were at 1,000. I moved it to about $750, $800. And that $200 that's difference, I put that towards my debt, an additional payment on my debt. And so being able to see it written down as you are doing your zero-based budget really helps you to move in a way that aligns best with your financial goals. It also helps you to eliminate things as well, which we just talked about, like what we had to eliminate, right? Like I didn't need to have two subscriptions to books. Like, do you need that, Brittany? No. So how about you take that away? And I use that towards other things. Some cons for this budget is that you might forget that you have an expense and it throws off your whole budget, right? There were times, and it's really important to track your expenses, which we're going to do a whole video on how to track your expenses, eliminate expenses that you might not need, that's taking up space. But what I was finding is as I tracked my expenses, and I would do my budget when I was first starting out with the zero-based budget, there would be like a rogue, which one was rogue? Apple. Apple would charge me like $3 for something that I didn't account for. And while $3 didn't make a huge impact, let's say one of my husband and I maybe decided that we were going to go out and had a parking fee and I didn't account for that in the budget. It kind of throws off that zero-based budget. So something that you really have to have if you're zero-based budgeting is a buffer in your account. So no matter, every time I did my budget, I would always leave at least $100 in my checking account for me to be able to have as a budget. Because with a zero-based budget, you put your money into different categories. You put your money into a bill category, or you put your money into restaurants, or eating out, or for gas, We'll talk about that a lot more as we go throughout this series about what that actually looks like. But as you are zeroing out your budget and creating your budget with the zero-based model, you really want to make sure that if you are getting to that zero, that you have a little bit of playing room. If there's a random expense, let's say you have you need to go to the doctors and you have a $25 copay and you didn't account for that in your budget, and you're using your card or you're using your envelopes and you don't have that ready to go. That's a con for this, is that you really need to create like a buffer or a safety net just in case you have those expenses, those rogue expenses that you didn't know about. Another thing is there's not a lot of flexibility in the moment. Like I said, if you have like a random trip, or not trip, random expense that come out when you're out with your friend, just like, oh, get a cup of coffee, da 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 da, and it adds up, or you go eat and it adds up, you didn't account for that when you budgeted. So there's little room for flexibility, but I figured out ways to really help with that, and that goes along with the buffer. So I will be talking more about the zero-based budget because that's the budgeting system that I use. So if you're interested in that, I got you. This budget is best for those that maybe have limited extra income. So you really want to be able to say, like, every cent, you know where every cent is going in your budget, and you are like on it. It's also good for those that want to have that hands-on experience with their budget, that you're budgeting on a weekly basis or a paycheck basis, you're budgeting on a monthly basis, and you're checking your online account, making sure that the money's there. Like I would say it's like a in-depth version of budgeting, but like for me that's fun. Some people are like, I kind of just want to budget and then be done, and I don't want to have to think about it until the next time I budget. This one might not be for you as much, and that's okay. And if you are wanting to reach financial goals for like savings and debt, and like pay additionally for debt on your debt minimum payment, or put more money aside for your emergency fund, this budgeting system is really good for you, the zero-based budget. All right, so we've gotten through 2 of our budget plans. Now we're on to our third, which is the pay yourself first, or the 80-20 budget. Okay, so with the pay yourself first 80-20 budget, this budget, the simple definition is that 20% of your budget, of your finances, goes towards savings or debt, and 80%, the remaining amount of your budget, goes to covering everything else. So covering the needs, covering the wants. So it's kind of like the 50-30-20, but in a different way, that you are doing just 2. 80% of it's going towards needs and wants, fixed and variable expenses, and your goal, fixed and variable expenses, and 20% is going towards your debt goals or your saving goals. Some people do in their account, they just automatically just pull 20% of their income and put it into a savings, or put it into their debt. And then the rest, 80%, just stays in their checking account, and that's where all of everything else goes, like your expenses come from. So this is a very like simple method of like, you know what your income is, you know what your variable and fixed expenses are, you know what your goals are for saving and debt, and you kind of work that into 80% of your income goes towards the fixed and variable expenses, 20% goes towards saving and debt, and that's it. It's pretty simple and straightforward. And it's called pay yourself first because it's that focused on that saving those goals that you have first, and then everything else just goes towards paying for those other expenses. This budget method is focused on, a lot of it is focused on that saving and debt. So if that's a financial goal for you, that's under your budget. Why you are budgeting is you want to work on savings and paying off debt. This could be a good option for you because you have those guidelines. Like, as long as you put that 20% paying yourself first aside and it's ready to go after you figured out what that number is, the rest is just in your account and you're good to go. This is best for those that have high, like enough income that they don't have to worry about you know, the nitty gritty of their expenses, right? Like once I put my 20% aside to those goals, I know that no matter what, on a monthly basis, I got enough to cover all my rent, mortgage, my car payments, my phone bill, my cable, everything else. You're comfortable enough that you know you don't need to worry about anything, and you don't have to be so on top of your daily expenses, because you kind of make enough, or you know what your income is enough, that this budget system works for you. It helps, like I said, to work towards some of the pros. It helps to work towards savings or debt goals, and you don't have to track your expenses. It's kind of like a set it and forget it. Back in the day, y'all know, if you know, you know, a set it and forget it. You already put that money aside. Everything else is in the account that you can use for what you need it to use for. Some of the cons is that you might overspend, right? You know what money is in the account, but you just swiping that card, swiper. Wasn't that like Dora? Swiper, no swiping. Yeah, you just swiping. You don't know what's left in that account. You're not checking it, and you might go into the negative. You might be overdrafting like a mug. This ain't the plan for you. If you on tight, or you have a lot of expenses going on and hits that account multiple times throughout the month, like this might not be the best plan for you. Might not be. Try it out. You'll see. And then I think that's like the biggest con for it. If you have some others that you could think about, but I would say that would be my biggest con that some people might say. And yeah, that's pretty much straightforward for the pay yourself first. All right, so the fourth budgeting system is called the envelope budget, or the cash envelope budget. Most of you might probably have heard cash envelope budgeting, cash envelope system, and this pretty much teams up with the zero-based budgeting system. Essentially, the simple version is that you do most of your budgeting in cash. Most of your especially variable expenses, most of your wants, or the things like eating out, groceries, gas, personal spending, you create categories within your budget and then go to the bank, take the money out, and then you have different envelopes. There are so many different types of envelopes that you can use for this budgeting system. You can go to your local store and get just regular white envelopes. There are people that make envelopes that are so fancy and beautiful and just amazing. You can create your own. If you just put in create your own cash envelopes, 100 million videos on YouTube will come up with it. But essentially, you create your categories for your budget. After you've kind of worked through that zero-based budgeting system or your budgeting system, you create your categories, and then you take out the money to go into those categories. So I'm going to give an example just to help you think through what that looks like. So if you are a cash envelope budgeter, like I am, I pair up zero-based budgeting and cash envelope budgeting. I've kind of stopped, but I'm going to get back into it. I would take out for a week about $150 for groceries. I would already know how much I want. I've already calculated in my budget. I would go to the bank. I would say I want $150 in cash. I will put it in my envelope. When I go to the grocery store, I don't use my card. I actually use the cash. There is a psychological understanding that when you have cash, instead of using a card, you don't spend money as much. Because of that transactional, where you actually have to give someone the money, they give it back, you have the money. On the card, you could just be swiping all you want. You don't really know how much is left. With the envelope system, it gives you a very focused look at your budget. I know I have $150 that I can work with over this week for my groceries. If I go over that $150, then that's it. Now, some people dip into other categories, which essentially that's not what you're supposed to do, because this is really helping you to try to stay within your budget of these categories. But if I know I have $150 for that week, I'm going to be meal planning, meal prepping, going in with a focused goal of what I'm buying. I'm not going to stray from the plan. And once that $150 is up, I'm done. For another example, $50 towards eating out. Once that $50 is done, I'm done. The thing that you really have to do within this system is that you have to, like every other system, track your expenses. You got to know what you typically spend money on. If you typically on a monthly basis spend $800 on food, don't be putting $600 in that envelope because you know you're about to go over. If you typically spend, let's say $35 a week on gas, give yourself 40. Like, be realistic with what you typically use and spend money on, and you use those numbers to work it in your budget, and that is what you're going to use for what you take out in the bank and your system. So some of the categories that many people have used for this system is rent, your bills. I usually have a debt envelope that I put money in throughout the month. Groceries, entertainment, savings, gas, eating out, personal spending. Those are typical categories that you have. For me, some of the bigger expenses like my bills, I just do that online because there's no reason I need to be taking out money when I'm just going to be paying online. It doesn't really make sense. What I do have is separate accounts within my main bank account that I move money into those categories throughout the paycheck. And that way I know when that bill is ready to go, I already have that money aside. Everything's aside for the bills. For my mortgage, I do the same thing. I know how much my mortgage is every month, and I separate it out between our paychecks. And every paycheck, I take a certain amount and move it towards that specific account. Like, I can have multiple accounts under my checking account, and then so I put that money aside, and then when that bill is ready to go, I just move it back over, or I pay it out of that account. So do what works for you, but for me, I found that the variable expenses are the better ones for me to do the cash envelope system. I know some people that do all of their categories, their fixed and variable expenses, their needs and wants for cash budgeting, and it works for them. Some cash envelope budgeting pros, it's good for those that need to reset their budget because you are, looking at your expenses, you're looking at your what you typically spend, and you're really aligning with where you want to go to help you reach your goals, making those goals within those budget categories. It allows you to track your spending. Like I said, when you go out, how much have I got left? I only got $2 left for me this week that I can use towards X. Maybe I'm going to have to keep those $2, or maybe I just won't do X. It gives you ability to know where every dollar is going. And the nice thing about the cash envelope system is that any money that's left over in the envelopes at the end of the pay period, however you do it, you can use it for two different things. You can roll it over to the next pay period, or you can put it towards your savings goals. So for me, when I had money left over in my envelopes, it would go towards my debt. Everything was focused on paying off debt. So even if I had $1 left in that envelope, it went towards an additional payment for my debt. Pretty simple. People that might not, or a con of this system is like, some people just don't want to have cash on them, and that's totally okay. Some people don't want to go to the bank every paycheck to get money out. I actually loved it. It was fun for me. Some people like to use their card, and I would say you can still use this system if you want to use your card, but you just have to kind of break out your bank account into what your envelopes would be, right? So you might have 5 different accounts within your bank account that goes towards your bills, that goes towards your groceries, that goes towards, and then work it out that way. Or you might, I think that would probably be the best way to go about it. And then you might not have enough money in your envelopes for when you need it, for those random things. And so some people like move money around, like I talk about. So that might be a con for people, but those that use this method, it's for those that want to have a better understanding of their spending habits, interested in reaching their saving and debt goals, because you can kind of work with that, have a steady income so you know how much income you're getting, and then you can really build out your categories off of that. Those that this budgeting system might not work for is that you can't commit to the envelope system. It's just like too much. It's very hands-on, like you gotta frequent the bank, all those other stuff like I talked about. It might not be good for you, and that's okay. That's totally okay. The last type of budget that we're going to be talking about is the reverse budgeting system, and pretty simple. It's just like the, what is it called? Just like the Pay Yourself First or the 80/20. But the difference is that you focus on one major money goal each month. So that 20% goes towards vacation one month, that 20% goes towards emergency fund the other month, that 20% goes towards summer camp fees or something. Like, you have these money goals, and typically the goals change every couple of months or on a monthly basis. That's like the biggest difference. And then rather paying your bills first, you pay yourself first and your bills later. So kind of similar to that Pay Yourself First. So you're paying your goals and things first, and then you go towards your other. So it's kind of similar, but I wanted to show you a little bit of the differences between that Pay Yourself First, because it's with the reverse budgeting, you're kind of changing those monthly goals, financial goals every month. Okay, so we talked through all of these budgeting sessions, budgeting types: 50, 30, 20, zero-based budget, Pay Yourself First, the 80/20 method, cash envelope budget, as well as the reverse budget. And so some quick things that I just want to throw out at you is that the 50, 30, 20 is really good for those that want to categorize their needs versus wants. The zero-based budget is good for those that really want to track consistent income and expenses. The Pay Yourself First, that's good for prioritizing saving and debt repayment. The cash envelope budget is really good for those that are making your spending more disciplined and knowing where your money is going and having more control of that. And the reverse budget is pretty similar to the Pay Yourself First, but it's prioritizing saving and debt repayment, as well as some very specific goals that change on a monthly or every other month basis. So those are the key components to all of these budget types. So before we move on, we got to do a dance break. Are you ready? We only got a couple more things ready to go, but I think because we finished that informational part, because I break up the videos in information and then application. Let's do a little dance break. Do 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 do. I really want to wobble. Wobble. Get in there. Yeah. Get in there. Yeah. Are you dancing? Are you dancing with me? Y'all, put down in the comments, put down below, what dances do you want to see me doing? And maybe I'll add them into my dance breaks for every one of our videos. So, hope you had a nice dance break. What dance did you do? Now I want to just quickly go over. So you should have been writing down some notes. You could have paused and started, stopped, whatever, to get your notes down. I'll go through and take all of my notes that I wrote down here and transfer them. But the activity number 3 for this week is pretty much you gonna pick. So take some time throughout this week to really think through your financial situation, your current situation right now. You'll be able to really identify as we get deeper into tracking expenses, narrowing down fixed and variable expenses to really decide and pick. But for right now, based on just the information I gave you, what budgeting style do you think you want to incorporate in creating your budget as we move forward within this series? And know that you can do a hybrid. So like I said, for mine, budgeting system, I use the zero-based budget and the envelope system. Pairing those together really worked well for me. And you might find that paying yourself first in the cash envelope budget or the zero-based budget and the 50, you might find some things work for you. You might have to do a combination. The nice thing and the best thing about budgeting is that it's personal. You gonna do what's gonna work best for you. Something that might work best for me is not gonna work for you because our financial situation and our goals are different. So as we think through knowing what our income is, knowing what our expenses are, knowing what those needs, wants, savings goals, debt goals are, payment goals are, you then can decide what plan do you think is best. And And yeah, I think that's going to be really important. Well, you gotta know as we are creating the budget which one you want to do. So for me, you and me in this activity, it's you and me blank budget are a perfect match. And for me, it is the zero-based and envelope, cash envelope budget that's gonna see. I gotta this is why I have an erasable one, because I needed to erase something, and I'm just gonna put envelope because I know what that means. Budget are a perfect match. We doing it. We here. All right, so that's it for the workbook. And the last thing I want to just talk about is that no matter which budget type that you pick, you got to do these things. We're going to be doing these together as we move forward, and that's going to be our next week, which you see how I'm building on stuff? I got you. So we're going to calculate our income. You got to know how much you're bringing in before you can budget anything. You're going to then evaluate your spending. What are you spending your money on? What are those needs? What are those wants that typically on a monthly basis you spend your money on? Then you're going to identify what your financial goal is. We're budgeting to help us to get to our financial goal, to help us to unapologetically live a joyous life. And for us to be able to do that, we gotta have some goals, whether it's savings or debt repayment. Then the last thing is that we got to try it out. We got to see what works. Like I keep saying, this part of budgeting is going to allow you to try it out, see if it works for you, see if it works for your family, see if it works for your lifestyle. And if it does, keep with it. I know for me, not budgeting or like being on the like half tip of budgeting, it ain't working. I need to be hands-on. I need to be in the nitty-gritty, in the weeds of the budget for me to be successful and for me to reach my goals. You might realize like, you know, I still want to know what my budget is, but I want to be a like set it and forget it type. That's fine. So you might try it and realize that this works and you're going to keep it, or it's like, it ain't working. It's not working for me and I got to make some changes, and that is okay. And that's the best part of budgeting. Listen, we can budget till who knows when, and it might change. My budgeting system changed from 2016 when it was just my husband to now what it is at this point. And that is all right, because our lifestyles change. We change as people. We change with our goals and things along those lines. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that it's you're getting yourself organized. This week was all around getting organized. Next week will be around, let me make sure I say it right. Show me the money. We talk about money. We're showing ourselves the money with our income, with our needs and wants, because again, that's going to help us to get towards that budget. The goal is to get to the budget at the end, but we got to do this pre-work now to get us there. And we doing it together. We are here. And I'm actually going to be showing you my real expenses and stuff, because I want to use my revamping and refreshing my budget to help y'all with yours. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure that you like and comment. Make sure down below you are putting what budgeting style you think you want to work with in this series and beyond. And I'm really happy that you're spending some time with me. Welcome to the Joy Crew. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, or if you decide that you want to spend some time and subscribe, we live in a joyous life over here, and a budget's going to help us get there. So have a good rest of your day. See ya. Bye.